feel like there's such this new influx on social media,
Mhm.
and for these kids that have the Snapchats and the I want to see where my friends are, and I don't even know all the apps, but it just seems like it never stops. And so I wish there was a way we could say there's a kindness app instead of, hey, let's get on this app and track my friends and see if I'm involved and not involved and if I'm not worthy enough, and kind of having that judgment.
If the parents are being the models,
Mm-hmm.
then usually the kids follow behind. Now, that's not always 100% true and things happen, but I can tell you just with my nieces and nephews and their kids, how they're practicing kindness, showing them kindness. Then these kids are stepping up at age 6 saying, Mr. Jones broke his leg, let's go help him do the fall cleanup in his yard. Just letting that other person know that you care is a huge kindness. And think about how your day starts. If you got a note like that, how would your day start?
They think they have something to offer, like even just as simple as the kindness, or for me,
Mm-hmm.
just as simple as the awareness. And they think, well, that's not cool enough, or that's not something enough. And so I think it's cool to tell people that with you, if you have something on your heart
Mm-hmm.
that is as simple as the two things I just mentioned, kindness and awareness, and you're holding on to it as it's like a gift to your own self. Like if somebody has that feeling, how do you get them unstuck? All right, hello and welcome back to the Power Shift podcast. I'm your host, Maggie Bio, and I have a very special guest with me today, Teresa Ramirez. And we connected not too long ago, but something about her was so inspirational when I read about her bio and what she does and how she helps people through kindness. And we actually were just kind of chatting about that. And I was so inspired by, kindness goes such a long way. And so I'm super excited to learn more about what you actually do, how you do it, and why you're so passionate about what you're doing. So I'd like to take a couple of minutes here and just introduce yourself and, who you are and why you do what you do. And then we'll kind of dive into some of the juiciness.
Okay, that'll be fun. I'm actually an award-winning author, which we hadn't spoke about before, and I wrote a book, Raising Kind Children. And the whole inspiration is to encourage parents to raise kind children, because all parents want healthy, happy, kind children, compassionate children, that they want their children to be able to change the world, and that's how we do that. So that's kind of what I do when I'm not spreading. Well, I kindness is a lifestyle, so it's a habit now. It's natural as breathing to me, so I can't say it when I'm not doing kindness. But when I'm not out speaking in front of people, let's put it that way. I walk the dog and I hike. I'm blessed. I live with a park in my backyard,
Mm.
and we're on the trails all the time. So it's so much fun. And my sons, who are older, now we go kayaking quite
Cool.
frequently, so those are fun things that I get to do.
Awesome.
So but the I wanted to just kind of go back where this really all started. There was a school shooting in Florida back in 2018, and why that one hit me versus, I mean, Sandy Hook had happened, other things had happened by that point, and of course things happened after. But sat down, and I do believe God put it on my heart to write a letter to those students,
Mm.
grieve with them, sympathize with them, and then say, hey, there's something you can do. You don't have to wait for laws to change. You don't have to wait for anybody to do anything. You yourself can do that. And I just wanted to reach out to kids and say, hey, look, sit with that kid that's sitting alone at lunch.
Mm.
If somebody dumps books, pencils, whatever on the ground, help them pick them up. It's really simple stuff. Help each other know that they're not alone and that they are welcome in that space. And then I kind of took that letter and set it aside because I didn't know what to do with it. And about a year later, I decided to do a 21-day kindness challenge for kids going through their day. So each day was someone or something they would encounter during the day. So day one is getting up, you encounter your parents, your siblings, people who live in your house, and how to be kind to them. Then how to be kind to the bus driver, carpool driver, etc., throughout their day. And I got to go out to a few schools. It was so much fun. But COVID hit, and just
Mm,
like everybody else, I'm plopped in front of the computer. And then I really paid attention to what people were posting on social media and was horrified how nasty adults were to each other. Adults were bullying each other on social media.
mm,
So your kids are checking your social media if for no other reason they don't want you posting about them. But they're reading it, and it
mhm.
might not be about them. But if you're being nasty and cruel to someone else, your kids are going to emulate that behavior. And they are going to say, well, if they can do it, I can do it over here on my computer with my group of people. So I got to thinking, I'm like, I need to get to parents. I need them to take control of the family and become the CEO. And they can determine the philosophy and values they want their children to grow up with. And that's how all this started. And I came up with just a simple, because parents are so busy, and I know that, just a simple process that takes kindness, everyday activities. You're making it now, uh, making it as natural as breathing, and then taking that to real life situations, those awkward, sticky situations, that you can be kind in those situations as well. So that's how the ball all got rolling.
I love that so much, and I think that there's so many people in this audience that will be listening to this that can relate so much to, um, I think the word I choose is bullying, or the word that I
Mhm.
choose is feeling like you don't belong, maybe, especially through your childhood years. I am guilty as charged as I was bullied. I was, the song and dance of lots of different emotions that went through my head. And I talk about this a lot with, and maybe we can kind of dive into this a little bit about, when I was a kid, and maybe when you were a kid, bullying was there, right? We had it, and it was affecting me. And I have
Mhm.
body complex issues even as an almost 40-year-old woman. But for us at that age, it stopped. It was a stopping point at school. We
Mhm.
had it, and maybe on the ride home from school, and maybe in the neighborhood sometimes it'd be teasing and that kind of thing. But I feel like there's such this new influx on social media,
Mhm.
and for these kids that have the Snapchats and the I want to see where my friends are, and I don't even know all the apps, but it just seems like it never stops. And so I wish there was a way we could say there's a kindness app instead of, hey, let's get on this app and track my friends and see if I'm involved and not involved and if I'm not worthy enough, and kind of having that judgment. So maybe dive into that a little bit with us, and kind of share your wisdom on how you think that is. And like you said, it's like the parents really are
Yeah.
showing. And so
And
yeah.
that's, my philosophy is, if the parents are being the models,
Hmm.
then usually the kids follow behind. Now, that's not always 100% true, and things happen. But I can tell you, just with my nieces and nephews and their kids, how they're practicing kindness, showing them kindness. Then these kids are stepping up at age 6, saying, Mr. Jones broke his leg. Let's go help him do the fall cleanup in his yard.
Mm,
6 years old. Dad didn't think of it, but because of what they've been teaching them, the kid noticed.
mm,
And
yeah.
so they all go over and do the fall cleanup for Mr. Jones. Um, and they'll do it when you're not watching. If you're practicing this, they'll do it when you're not watching. I have a nephew who was in junior high school and noticed some kid with a wheelchair couldn't push his wheelchair and carry the lunch tray.
Mm,
So he went over and carried his lunch tray for him. And the really cool thing about that, he invited him to sit with his friends. And my nephew is one of the athletes, so he sits with all the athletes. The kid come to find out, the kid in the wheelchair knew every sports statistic out there.
right.
They loved this kid. So
Yeah.
I think, don't be afraid to go reach out and help somebody, because they ended up being really good friends. Um,
Yeah.
with the group. So they got to meet a really interesting person. You don't know until you go and reach out to them. How do you know? And I know it's hard for kids. They're always looking, well, I don't know, what are people going to think? And I know somebody had said, they say it's cool to bully somebody. No, it's
Mm,
not. It's cool to
no,
be kind.
right.
We
Absolutely.
need to flip that. And I think the more people, as I always say with this, the more ripples of kindness we're putting out there in our own little corner of the world, the more it's going to smother
Yeah.
the bully.
The compound effect, right?
It's compound effect, it's a ripple effect,
Yeah.
because there is the most, I think, I just love this about kindness. There are studies. People have done tons of studies, the Harvard, Mayo clinics, all these places have done studies on kindness and its effect on you physically.
Yeah.
And what happens if you and I exchange an act of kindness? Our serotonin levels go up.
Yeah.
Serotonin's our happy hormones. So you and I are two very happy people from one act of kindness.
Right.
But I think this is the most fascinating thing. Anybody that watches us, their serotonin levels also go up.
It's
So one
contagious.
act of kindness, and we've got a room full of happy people. We have created quite the ripple. And
Yeah.
if everyone is doing that, those ripples are going to eventually merge together and wash across the country. And it's
Yeah.
going to wash out the negativity that's out there.
Yes, I love that. And I think that that's something that, as I maybe even already mentioned, like I grew up with kindness. We were taught, open the door for somebody, maybe
Mhm.
when you get led into the parking or the spot or you get into traffic, you give a simple wave. And so I love to kind of talk about that too, because I think, like you said, it's such a simple act that
Mhm.
makes you feel better. I feel better. We all just feel better. And as a collective, it's just such this almost like this moment of like pure joy and happiness. And it's like, wow, that other person saw that I was helpful and they got help. And
Yes.
then now they might go and help somebody. And so I just love that. And I think it's very important for, parents. And even if we have
Mhm.
some younger adults in this audience listening,
Yeah.
it is one simple thing, like you had mentioned. It doesn't have to be, that you're feeling like you're bending over backwards or doing something that maybe doesn't fit in your day. It's as simple as just sharing a smile. I mean, even when we first popped on, it was as simple as
Mhm.
me saying, I absolutely love your hair. It
Yes.
brought this conversation. And so it's really cool that you said that too about that, high school boy. You never know who you're going to meet through a connection
Right.
of picking up a pencil bag or inviting this young man to lunch and actually being like, holy cow, he knows a lot of stuff and I'm super excited to learn more about him. So I really think that
Right.
it's so powerful. And I think a lot of people really skip over. Like, I think, can you kind of go in a little bit about how you talk? I think you've mentioned it twice now, is kindness as simple as is really as simple as breathing, or we need to have it
Yeah.
be, maybe you can reference what I'm saying here, but
That's okay.
let's dive into that too. Like how, why I think most people, like you said, some kids are like, well, I'm kind of embarrassed, or I don't know what that person's going
Mhm.
to feel like. It's like when somebody has that like nitty gritty thing in their tooth, right? And you're like,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't want to tell them. It
Yeah.
might make them embarrassed, but that's the kindness that it's like, hey, it
That's the
saves them,
kindness. Yes.
hours of embarrassment of, smiling with it all in their teeth. And then for a moment of just being like, oh wow, thank you so much for
Yes.
telling me. Or the fly down
Yes.
with the zipper, right? Like, oh my gosh, their fly is down. Maybe I shouldn't tell them. And it's almost kind of like you start doing this weird thing. And so I love that. Can you dive into that a little bit for us and just explain what you mean by it's as simple as really breathing?
It's your simple day to day. It's as simple as leaving your kids or your significant other sticky notes, whether it
Mm,
be on the bathroom mirror, on the coffee mug, in the briefcase or the backpack, saying, "Hey, you're awesome. I appreciate you. You make my day."
mm,
Any of you're smart. Kids really need to hear that
yeah.
they are smart. Um, all those things, you matter. You are the most important thing to me. Any of those kind of little phrases, and that starts at home. That starts at home. And you can put that, like I said, mirrors, briefcase, coffee mugs, it doesn't matter. Just letting that other person know that you care is a huge kindness. And you can think about how your day start. If you got a note like that, how would your
Mm,
day start?
yeah. It starts out really
and
good.
and all it was a little note. Um, and then just go through your day, whether it's, everybody goes to the grocery store.
Mhm.
Okay. Don't leave the cart in the middle of a parking spot. It's the bane of my existence.
Yeah,
And you
but
have to
why is
think,
that not why do you do that?
I mean, buddy, it's the most frustrating thing. You go to pull in a spot and you're like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, and the cart thing is literally, like, maybe a half a centimeter over too. It's like, "Okay,
Exactly.
yeah, maybe just take another 3 steps."
And just so take that out of there and just again, by it not being there, it makes the start of somebody's shopping time so
Mhm,
much better.
yeah.
I had a guy, talk about simple, and we're keeping on grocery store. There was a mom, crying toddler in the cart.
Mm.
She's trying to open the produce bag. And I know you all been there. Those suckers are hard to get open, and the kid's crying, and you can just see in our face, I just need 2 things and we can get out of here.
Right.
And a guy came over, took the bag from her, opened it up, handed it back. The kid stopped crying, and the weight of the world was lifted off that woman's shoulders.
And you or somebody bystanding could actually feel that, like you said, it's just like this
Yes.
awe moment, like, "Wow,
It's like,
what did that
wow.
do for her? Now she can get the
Mhm.
heck out of the grocery store." And it also, it's just such, yeah, so that go ahead and just kinda
Yeah.
explain that. Yeah, I just think that's it's
It,
so interesting.
it's so interesting. And all he did was open produce bag. Didn't cost anything.
Nope,
And it took seconds,
seconds.
seconds. And you made her day. You could
Right.
just tell her whole day had changed around for the better.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep saying it's just those little things. And continuing on the little things is, what are you saying and doing in the car when someone cuts you off? And you got kids in the back seat, you
Right.
got teenagers sitting next to you who's going to start driving next year.
Yeah.
What are you teaching them? That
Right.
it's, and road rage is huge. When I did that 21-day kindness challenge, I threw road rage in there on a day that there is no room in your journey in kindness for road rage. And I had more comments on that than anything else,
Yeah.
because they're like, yeah, but they cut me off. Those people are idiots. And they're going, and I'm like, hello, woo, time out. This is what we're going to stop. And I'm guilty. I loved my horn.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I put a stop on a sticky note and put it on my horn
Mm.
so that I don't go crazy with it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that you have to do because your kids are watching.
Right.
And if you're using the language and the fun hand signals, guess what they're going to be doing?
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
just those kind of things. It's again, simple little things.
Absolutely, and I think it's interesting to kind of pull that out because we were always taught as kids is like the monkey see, monkey do. And I think as parents, sometimes I'm actually not a parent. I was a step parent for 10 years. And it's very interesting when you kind of say that because I think back to, how was I acting sometimes in that car when I had stepchildren in there? And I know I was a huge influence on those kiddos and I instill kindness, but it's interesting to think about even the small things as a parent that can
Yep.
make just enough of a difference for your children. And like you said, flipping the bird or cussing somebody out for making a simple, sometimes, or I think most oftentimes, unless they're on their phone and speeding and reading a book at the same time, most oftentimes things that happen on the road are more of an accident than an on purpose type of a thing.
Yeah.
I lead to believe. Like I said, if you're texting and eating ice cream and talking on, all the things, that might be more of an incident where you want to be like, what the heck are you doing? So I love that you say that because it reminds me to think about how I do act sometimes. And I don't have maybe children in the car, but doesn't it just feel weird sometimes when you do react? I think that's another part of what you talked about. Um, is it's not always about the reaction. It's like, take a second to kind of and you're instantly kind of like, "Oh, man, why'd that person do that?" or this or that. And so you instantly what happens then, right? You talk about the
Right. Right.
serotonin and all the exit the excitement that comes out, but is there a thing that you can kind of talk to us a little bit about like, well, what happens when we act before maybe we think it over, like, "Was that really that big of a deal?" Actually, I was just listening to a
Yeah.
person honk
Yeah.
their horn today.
I always think, did somebody die? Did somebody get hurt?
Right.
Okay, then why am I getting so upset?
Yeah.
But the road rage thing, and I'll use this as an example. One of those, I have no idea what I did. To this day, I couldn't tell you. And I got off at the exit ramp, and the car in front of me, we're all sitting there waiting for the light to change. He gets out of his car and he is yelling, and the arms are flying. And I'm like,
Oh, boy.
what do I do? Well, you laugh. I put on my clown nose.
I love it. Because what
I
does that
had
do? Spreads joy.
It does. I had read something about Patch Adams, and so I got one, and it was just sitting on the console, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But I thought, okay, well,
This
yeah. And he couldn't have stopped fast enough. I think he
yeah.
actually slipped trying to fast, and I'm waving, and he's like, could not get back to his car fast enough.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I don't know what I did. And I would feel terrible if I didn't do anything horrible, but he seemed
Right.
just fine. And I always wonder to this day, what did he tell the people when he got where he was going? What did he say about the crazy lady with the clown nose?
Yeah. And that's what's so fun about that kind of stuff is he probably once he saw that, he thought to himself the exact same thing you just thought or we've just said was, "Is there a real reason why I'm being like this?" And then it was probably that instant like, "Oh my gosh, the clown." Okay. Probably sent him right into
Yeah.
that like laughing inside thinking, "How
Yeah.
stupid and idiotic do I seem right now?" So I love that and it's such a story for you to tell, for them to tell, like you said, it's probably a ripple effect in that way as well. So I love
Yes.
that. So I would like to talk a little bit about, you talk about kindness and you talk about all these things with, kids learning adult behaviors and following
Mhm.
along. And I think what I want to dive into a little bit more with you is you mentioned at the very beginning of the episode about a school shooting that kind of
Mhm.
made an
Yeah.
impact for you, right? It was maybe
Right.
a moment in your life where you thought, "Oh my gosh, how can I be of kindness or how can I
Yeah.
do something?" And I live in Littleton, Colorado. So one of the weirdest, craziest days for me was Columbine High School. And I actually just went and did a 4-week workshop with kids at Columbine around just self awareness, confidence, mindset, and that kind of thing. And so I would love to kind of just talk to you a little bit about that, about diving
Mhm.
into you had that moment in your life. And I live in the backyard of Columbine High School, so we all know that was, I think, the very first very large massacre. And so not to get to like talking about shooting and violence, but you talk about that with your the parents and how they're instilling this maybe violent behavior, even if it's as simple as honking the horn and this and cussing and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. So let's dive into that just a little bit more so we can maybe help, listeners understand that moment for you was to share this kindness, but it also seems like it's been a ripple effect in other ways that you're kind of trying to help. So, is there something that you can leave like a little inspiration or a little something? I know everything we've talked about has been such a simple act, but is there something that's a
Mhm.
little bit more, you know, I don't want to say impactful, that's probably not the right word.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Well,
Yeah,
and it's once you make it as natural as breathing,
right.
it does graduate to the bigger things. Okay, so now let's bring in the community. Let's bring in the soccer team, the volleyball team, the drama club, the chess club. Let's all get together and collect new socks for the homeless.
Hmm,
Let's all get together and do in January and February when the food banks are depleted since the holidays. Let's do a huge food drive. So you're now getting a community, making a community and making projects like that. And that also helps. And it also helps people getting to work together and in a positive way.
mhm,
And that does help with relationships as well.
right.
And then you can go into the difficult situations, the awkward situations. And the road rage was one of them. And you can use humor. And if you can run in, if your people are screaming at each other, you can walk in. And if you can throw a one liner out there, just like the red nose, it stopped
Mm,
because it stopped and made people like, wait a minute, what's going on? And that's really what you want to do is stop the escalation of something like that and
Mm,
give everybody a breather, and then they can come back and talk about it rationally.
okay.
And the other thing you were talking about, compliments is another great
Mm,
way to combat something where they're yelling and screaming at you. Say it could be at home, it could be your kids fighting. That's when you can use your one liners. If it's another adult, you can start using compliments. You know, I love your hair. And, or, I really like the way you did such and such. And what happens each time someone is throwing negative at you and you keep throwing the kind words back out is then it stops because you can't continue to be nasty to somebody when they're being kind to you and telling you how wonderful you are. And you don't have to out and out lie. I will
right.
point that out. You don't have to out and out lie, but you can find something positive to say about that. And those things, I actually do that in an exercise with kids. I will get them to come up one by one and talk to me, and I throw the stuff back out, and they just start to fumble because, again, just we're wonderful, and if you're telling someone you're wonderful, they really all the fuel kind of goes out.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
And then it's also choices. Um, Choices happen. I can tell you, I was at a restaurant with a friend, and we they sat us down right away, but it took forever for the server to come. And
Mm.
when she comes, she's got her little pad. What do you want?
Oh,
No, hi, how are you? What do you want? And we're like, well, we had a couple of questions. I don't know. They just told me to come over here, take your order. What do you want? Okay. So we placed our order. We got our food. Everything was fine. She never came back until she brought the check,
mm,
and she was still in a foul mood, and I mean foul. So we're like, do we want to call the manager over to complain, or I said I got a better idea. So we left the tip on the table, normal tip, and on her receipt, I put, "You are designed to shine," and a smiley face.
mm.
And we got our stuff. We walked out, and she ran and chased us down into the parking lot.
Oh,
And
wow.
she had tears. Thank you. I really needed to hear that today.
Mm.
So, my moral of the story, personal pain is as unique as a fingerprint, and you never know what someone is going through. So, always, always, always be kind.
I love that. And I think that just like I was saying, and like we, we got deep and we're talking about some pretty heartfelt things and
Mhm.
instances in our lives that have changed our way of thinking about kindness. And I know like we've talked about I was born into kindness with my parents and I've always felt like I instill that and so just hearing that story too is you really truly never know what someone's going through. And it can feel so kind of placed on you. Like you guys probably thought, "Well, what the heck did we do wrong?" You know?
Ex-
And so then we start to kind of fumble and we start to think, "Well, how did we why are we getting treated?" You know, and so that's kind of a vicious cycle sometimes when you don't realize that maybe she had, something terrible had happened and she
Yeah.
wasn't able to leave work and she was having to, whatever it was. And for you to not react to it and then just kill her with kindness is what I always remember my mom kind of saying is kill it with kindness. Um, so it's so powerful to think about that because I think a lot of times we think, well, and I'm guilty of this actually. I had
Oh,
kind of a similar situation not too long ago at a restaurant where this guy was just a complete jerk when we sat down. He was a complete jerk when we ordered. He mumbled things under his breath. And so I'm gonna take this and realize that I made a mistake that day. And so I want people to relate to that no matter how old you are, you're still gonna make mistakes. But
sure. Yeah.
instead of me
Yeah.
killing with kindness, I ended up actually putting on the receipt, I think you might want a better job or a different job.
Okay.
Now, what did that do? It didn't make me feel any better. But
No.
I thought, he kind of needs to know he should probably get a job that he's not dealing with people, and it was a how do you say that, backhanded not compliment, or whatever.
Yes.
And so thank you for sharing that, because I think it's very important. We don't all have it figured out, right? And I think that's where the beauty
No,
is in all the chaos. Nobody knows what we're really truly doing here, but we're finding it out, and the magic is there. But thank you for putting that even just in perspective, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there who have done what I probably did, is, get a new
sure.
job, or, instantly think you treated me that way, so I'm going to kind of capitalize off of the treating that you did to me. And so thank you for sharing that, because when you were saying it, I was like, oh my gosh, just like 4 months ago, I think I did a completely not the best thing to do, but and like I said, it didn't make me feel any better. Actually, like I almost felt like I had to run out of the restaurant. Like, I hope he doesn't know that I wrote it on the. And so just making sure that you're very aware of what is it that you are doing that's that
Mhm.
simple, that isn't the best behavior, that could really actually maybe even make his day that much worse. And it didn't.
Well, yeah, and you've got to think you can't change the way the other person acts. You can
Right.
only change how you react.
Yes.
And in that, and first of all, I am so far from not perfect, and I make slips all the time, and I've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
So just, and that's it. Give yourself grace. If
Hmm.
you do, give yourself grace, that's fine. And just do better the next time. And that's the way you have to approach these things, with kindness. Oh, I missed that, or I could have done that. It's okay.
Yeah.
Next time you'll know, and you'll do better.
Yep.
But you just have to remember it's your choice.
Hmm.
Sometimes I always tell this to people, and they like look at me, give me dirty looks, but what's more important, to be
Hmm.
right or to be kind?
Mm.
And sometimes it's, in my opinion, it's always more important to be kind, no matter what the topic. And there's been
Oh
some
man,
crazy
you just
topics,
bursted
and
a
we know
whole lot of
there's
bubbles.
lots of heated topics out there right now. But
Yep.
sometimes you just have to walk away.
Yeah.
You just have to say, there is a time and a place for certain conversations, certain tough conversations, but it's not over the dinner table, over the Christmas dinner table. It's not at someone's wedding reception. I know, gosh, it's been 25 years ago now. Two uncles, and they even sat them like on opposite sides of the room at the reception, ended up, and they ruined this
Mm.
couple to this day. That's what they remember about their wedding day, that our uncles were practically brawling in our wedding reception. Not
And
the beautiful
what
day,
yeah,
not anything, but that's what they remember. I thought, you ruined because you wanted to be right.
yeah. I love that's so simple,
Yeah.
we all, when I said that over you a little bit of like you burst a lot of people's bubbles, I think a lot of us are like, well, I'm right. I want to be right. And I want to, and really sometimes it's about just kind of swallowing that large little lump that's in your throat and think, how can I make a better decision on that? And so I love these little situations, because these are so relevant to everybody in this world about, honking your horn and having the road rage, and, all different kinds of things that happen in our day-to-day life. And so I think this is going to be so helpful to people to just really truly like take a step back for 1 second. So I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about, you talked about the pivotal moment a little bit, and why, you have maybe redirected more into this whole kindness thing. Like, how has your life changed? Or were
Gosh.
you always that? Or with some of this stuff, is there, because I think a lot of people struggle to say, well, what's it really going to do for me? Like, what's so for you, can you just give us like maybe one little blurb about like maybe how your life might have felt before you had this kind of like aha pivotal epiphany moment of like kindness, to now how you every single day you wake up and breathe kindness?
Yeah, and it's an amazing transformation, actually.
Mm.
Um, because I was, you know, pseudo kind before,
Sure.
whenever it was convenient, let's put it that way. And I kick myself now. I said, gosh, I wish I knew then what I know now,
Mm.
because my kids would have been raised different. And just because of my spotty kindness, thank goodness they are both kind today. But now it's, I know I worked in the corporate world for 30 plus years, but now I get to get up every day and teach people to be kind.
Mm,
I mean, it's just fun. And I'm happier and I don't let those stupid little things that used to, you would get so mad over the road rage stuff or a produce bag that won't open or, bad server. I would allow it to
mm,
ruin my day. And
mm,
now I'm just, okay. And I'm like, how can I help them? How
mm,
can I serve them? And that's the way I look at things. And I'm 10 times happier than I was. And like I said, just getting up in the morning and know I get to talk to somebody else and spread more kindness. And that's the biggest thing for me is I get this is the best job ever.
mm.
This is the best job ever. And I wish I had done it 30 years ago, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting because a lot of I think people would say, well, that's a job. But right? But when you're
Yes,
leading with
yes,
such a purpose and a passion and it's so fulfilling to you, I think a lot of people actually get stuck in that as this job has to be this, this and that, or
yes.
we're so programmed to think that, how is that a job? But it's like it's a passion project turned
Right.
your job. And so I think
Right.
that's so important for people to think because sometimes I'm here to believe that there's a lot of people out there, and you can maybe answer this with me, but like that they think they have something to offer, like even just as simple as the kindness, or for me,
Mhm.
just as simple as the awareness. And they think, well, that's not cool enough, or that's not something enough. And so I think it's cool to tell people that with you, if you have something on your heart
Mhm.
that is simple as the two things I just mentioned, kindness and awareness, and you're holding on to it as it's like a gift to your own self. Would you be able to kind of elaborate on that for a quick second about like if somebody has that feeling, how do you get them unstuck? Like how would you say to them? Because I think for me, with you being a speaker, I'm a mentor. I'm starting my speaking career as well. And there were so many times where I thought, how do I tell people, well, I'm a speaker. Well, what's your job? Well, I'm a speaker, or I'm a podcaster. Well, what's your job? So I just think there's a lot of labels out there anymore that, if you have a passion or something in deep in your heart that you just can't stop thinking about, what would be one thing that you could maybe say to the audience, like, go after it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, do it. No,
Yeah.
just do it. There's just no other way to say it. And if you're like, okay, I have an idea, but I haven't formulated out, sit down and just brain dump on a piece of handwrite on a piece of paper. There's something about handwriting versus typing. You handwrite it out and just anything that comes into your mind brain dump for 15-20 minutes
Mm,
and then look at what you wrote and then you pick out the best pieces and then whatever passion you have it starts to come alive and then you can just do what I did. I just went out and did a 21-day kindness challenge on Facebook. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just did it and it led to I led to getting into a local networking group who got me into some schools. And then since then, I've gotten into a larger networking group, and someone has taught me how to reach out to podcasters like yourself, and
yeah.
I can spread more kindness. And then I took all these. Everybody kept saying, "Write it down, write it down, write a book." I'm like, okay, fine. And so I had to take all my research, all my notes, and compile it into a book, which launched in May. And
Wow.
then I wanted to speak. Now I spoke in my private previous life, but I wanted to be good. I wanted to be better. So I took a certified speaking class just to make myself that much better. That's just graduating, get started, get the idea formulated, and then just start putting stuff out there. And it will change and evolve. Just like me, I started out talking to kids and then I went to parents. Then I now have a book. So things will evolve and change. That's
Yeah.
okay. Let it flow.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm in a flow state right now, and it's crazy how much more of alignment I feel just being in more of a flow state. And so I think that's such just a practical tip for anyone who is
Yes.
listening that is maybe like, gosh, I just have something that's on my heart and I just don't know where to start or those things. And it's always just that one little, I like to even say a half step because sometimes that full step feels really scary. But what's the half step for you? And like you said, just writing something down, that's just, what does that take? And not a whole lot. I mean, you could do it before bed or when you wake up or
Yeah.
some free time you have. And so if you have something on your heart, I think you go for it. And look at what you just said. It's like you did one thing that led to another thing that has led to an even bigger thing. You pivoted, you shifted, you changed, you did some things, and now it's bigger. And so I think
Mhm.
that's just so it's inspirational. So thank you for
Yes.
sharing that because I think a
Oh,
lot of us hide our talents and hide our true desire of what we want to be doing in this world. And like
mhm.
I mentioned, it's sometimes it's like, well, people go around the table and say, well, what do you do for work? And they're all like, well, I'm this, talking corporate or talking these things. And they get to me and I'm like, oh God, please don't ask me. Like, can the conversation just end? Because I don't want them to ask me because and it's hard because I don't want to hide behind that anymore. I am somebody who's going to make an impact in this world, and it doesn't have to have that corporate label or the thing that
Right.
you thought maybe your parents wanted you to do or the society is thinking you should do. And so I think that that's so cool for you to kind of share that look what you did. You just
Just did
started,
it.
and
Mhm.
I feel the same way. I am just starting, and if you don't
Yeah.
start, you're never gonna know.
That's true. And you'll hit snags along the way. And if
Mhm.
get to a point where I really like when I got to my book, I had written it, it was there. I had no idea what to do after that,
Right.
how to publish it. And I got with a publishing coach. So, you might have to reach out to some professionals to help you get to the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And so would you say, to kind of wrap this up, would you say that in your pivot and in your power shift to now be in this kindness realm, are you living with more purpose, passion, and fulfillment?
Absolutely. Hands down.
Love it. And I think that's just so powerful because, we just said, it's a lot of times we stay stuck for all the wrong reasons, and
Mhm.
life is meant to be kind. Life is meant to be lived.
Yes.
Life is meant to be joyful and prosperous. And a lot of times, I feel like so many people are, some of us weirdos is what I like to call myself sometimes. That I haven't necessarily like nailed down. I've had long term career and things, but this last couple of years, it's been about exploration and being creative and curious and being okay with not necessarily saying, I have this job. And letting people know that it's okay to, if you do have a dream on your heart, to go at it, pursue it, and you never know what will
Absolutely.
happen. So
Mhm. And I do have a kind gift for your listeners.
okay.
It's a 75 acts of kindness checklist. So
Oh,
where you want to start, you really want to be intentional about it, you have nowhere to start. Here's 75 ideas.
oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. That's so great because I think that's the hardest part is where do I start? Well, here you
Yes.
go. Here's a little roadmap for you. So as we kind of close this down, I would love for you to I want to end each episode with a little touch of something from each guest, a mantra, a quote, something that like I'm sure you have one of those that it spews out of your heart. Um, what would you leave us with, and then also tell us where we can find you and locate your book and all the things. But give us that mic drop moment
Oh,
in of something.
Um, okay. Well, I've already given you a couple, but
Yeah.
I will leave you with a quote from W.C. Fields. Just because you're invited to an argument doesn't mean you have to attend.
Mm. I love that. I'm going to leave that there for the audience to think over because I think if we start to dive into it, we put perspective on our own. But I absolutely love that. So thank you for that. And then tell us a little bit about where we can find you, and that way they can connect with you if they would like to. And of course, that 75-day challenge is amazing.
Yeah, you can find me at journeyinKindness.com. And if you would like me to speak at a club PTO organization, you can reach me there. The link to my book is also there. So
Awesome.
that's good.
Great. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to chat with you, all things kindness. And I think that each and every one of us, as we leave this episode, are just going to feel like, what can we go do to just spread a little bit of kindness? So I appreciate your time so very much.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.